Good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Yo Kids Podcast. Before we get started, be sure to check out homeschoolyourkidsexpo.com. Although I know our traveling season will be over by the time this is published, you can check out our schedule for next year, as well as the many resources that are on our platform. So check that out. And remember, homeschooling was never meant to be done alone. It takes a village, will always take a village. So be sure to tap into some of our sponsors that are mission to ensure that you find your tribe. So there's Classical Conversations, which is a nationwide curriculum provider. They're everywhere, literally. They also offer community support. And then we also have Basecamp, which is an amazing free app that encourages community building through community resources, as well as finding families who have the same age kids as you and things of that nature all in your area. So check them out. It's a pretty cool app. And today we have with us Brandy. Brandy, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brandy Vizmanos Garcia, and I'm the principal of Academy Northwest in Washington State.
Okay, principal. Hi, hey girl. Tell us how we got here. How did we get on this journey? How did you find yourself in education?
So I was a public school teacher for 9 years. The last 5 years, I was a special ed teacher working with students with behavior challenges. And in that time period, our son was brought into our life. We adopted our son, and he was having challenges adapting to his new home situation and his school situation. So we had him in a preschool, and he was doing really well. But then his teacher ended up moving, and we started seeing a lot of behavior challenges, just anxiety for a little guy. And so I ended up taking a leave of absence as a behavior teacher. I realized while I worked in a really good school, worked with great teachers, the system I knew was not good. We did not want our son to have that. So we started exploring private schools. And then I heard an ad for Academy Northwest on the radio, and thinking I was going to go do something for my son, this homeschooling thing. I believe it or not, I had never heard of homeschooling. I didn't know it existed. I was raised in private and public schools, but I thought, well, what is this? And I went to a meeting with one of the former founders, and they started telling us about how they were an approved accredited private school, but their goal was to walk alongside parents for homeschooling and providing their children with an individualized education. And so fast forward about almost 20 years, here I am. I ended up quitting my job in the public school system, became a homeschool mom, and became a teacher for Academy Northwest. And right before COVID hit, I agreed to become principal. And wow. So, yeah, I know it's like there's a reason things happen at certain times, right? So got to move through that and everything. But yeah, so that's the gist of it. I came to homeschooling because of my children, which I think is probably why everyone does. That's why it's homeschooling, right?
Right, indeed. And like you, growing up, all I knew was public and private too. Homeschool wasn't a discussion at all. But it was funny because I tell people before I had kids, though, because somewhere along the lines I thought, oh, okay, yeah, no, this isn't it. But early in my early 20s, I used to always say, I'm going to homeschool my kids. Like, I'm going to homeschool my kids. Even though I didn't know nothing about it, didn't know, no experience as far as meeting other homeschoolers or anything. I just knew that I didn't want them to go to public school. So it was just like, I'm homeschool my kids. But yes, okay. So you took your son out because that wasn't the atmosphere for him. You all started homeschooling, or you jumped right into the academy?
So I started in the state of Washington. I think we're the only state the compulsory age is 8.
And yes, so I just learned that this week.
Yeah, and so like I homeschooled him purely until I think until second grade, and so yeah, and one of the founders, that's the other thing in Washington State. I think our laws are really good for homeschoolers. Our founders were two of the people who helped get the homeschool laws on the books. And they have this, even though I was a teacher, I knew how to be a teacher. I did not know how to be a mom who taught her kids. And so I took the parent qualifying class, even though I didn't have to because I had a degree and everything in teaching. But I took that class and I just learned how to unteach is the best way I can say, like not have workbooks and, you be in a classroom setting. And for the first couple years, I just had a blast with him, just learning by going out and doing field trips and just doing activities. And I was probably homeschool overdrive. I just was looking for co-ops everywhere just because it
Mhm.
was so new to me. But yeah, so in his early elementary years, we just went ahead and just did the basics. I still am a teacher. I'm still educated as a teacher. Like math and reading were always something. I was blessed because my son did not have reading challenges, so he picked that up really quick. And then he has a sister that's 3 years younger than him that came along the way, and our kitchen table became the classroom. So, and then as they moved into middle school, I did officially, even though I was working for Academy Northwest, I did officially enroll him in Academy Northwest in seventh grade because he started taking his foreign languages, high school level foreign languages, and we wanted to make sure that it was on a transcript, accredited transcript. And that's the beauty of Academy Northwest is we are a Washington State approved private school. Um, and anytime a student is enrolled with us, they do not have to do the intent to homeschool. They are considered private school students. But that kind of scares people thinking, oh, we're not homeschooling anymore. But we do. I work with another teacher who helps me make sure my curriculum is aligned with standards and everything. And then I still provided the schooling to my child. And then when he got into Algebra 1, I started working with math teachers to help me with him and everything, and then my daughter and so on. But yeah, so they
Nice.
kind of transitioned into the school part, but we were always homeschooling first grade and up.
Nice. Okay. So you had to go through, you called it unteaching process. I know in the homeschool world, they probably call it deschooling,
Or
which is just,
deschooling, yeah.
yeah, deschooling, where, you have to release what you thought education needed to look like or teaching needed to look like. And that was a process. I
Right.
know some people are, you're asking like, how long did it take you to deschool? And some be like, I'm still at deschool. Like,
Yes, exactly.
because it is definitely a process. But it's cool to know or reimagine what it looks like to teach your child because you learn quickly. Oh, okay, they're learning doing this or they're learning doing that. Oh my gosh, this question I just answered, we just spent about 25 minutes going into a rabbit hole with this. Like, that is learning. And so y'all found your groove.
Yeah, and not testing all the time either.
Yes.
In the public school, everything is based on that test that you're going to take at the end of the year, and you're teaching to the test. And even when I was in the public school system, especially as a special ed teacher, that was always so frustrating because I knew I was not giving my kids what they needed. And so that was one of the first freedoms like I embraced was I don't have to worry about always teaching to a test. So that was nice.
Yes, yes. That is a relief because there's so much anxiety all across the building. It's not, just with the students, it's with the teachers, it's with the parents on top of this, the teachers. It's a lot. It's a lot of pressure, unnecessary pressure too, because those tests I used to tell my students I would have failed these tests. Okay, know that. Know that I have a master's and I would have failed these tests.
Mhm.
Um, I'm not a test taker. I'm not. That's not my forte, especially during the time of scantrons where you miss a dot and the whole thing is off. Like what? Like they erase marks all. I'm just like
Mhm.
forget about it. Like, forget it. Just take it. Just take it. I don't care.
Yeah.
But those tests are a lot for everyone, even down to the AP advanced placement students. Like it's a
Mhm.
lot. It's a lot. So test taking or not having to do that, it creates a different energy in the child, I believe. And it allows them to approach learning in a different manner.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
And in
So,
the state of Washington, if you're, I'm going to say, just a pure homeschooler, you aren't under a private school. Like Academy Northwest runs what are called extension programs. I have 20 teachers throughout the state of Washington who have their own learning centers, and they are an extension
oh,
of the private school. So in the state of Washington, if you're under a private school, then you don't have to worry about the main homeschool laws. So if you do submit your intent to homeschool, where you as the parent are 100% in control, the government is not touching you in any way. They do have to have a test once a year. Once the
okay.
kid is over 8 years old, they must test them once a year, and they have to go to a certified teacher or like a reputable testing company to do that. And parents are required to test them by law. But interestingly enough, we don't have to submit those records to anyone, not to the school district or anyone. We just are supposed to maintain those records for ourselves to use to help our children. And it's nice because I help test homeschool students once a year. And they are so precious because they're not used to traditional testing and everything. And we just tell them, oh, don't worry. And we never show, most of the parents never show them the scores. And they do really, I don't know, like their test scores in general, as they get older, they start breaking all the barriers. I mean, the longer you homeschool, the test scores, unless you have some learning disabilities, you're going to go above and beyond what's happening in the public school system. But the kids do. I mean, they don't. Most of them don't have that anxiety that I think a lot of the kids in the public school did, because they know it's not going to affect what I do. Mom and dad are still going to do what they're going to do with me, and I'm doing fine. So,
Yes.
and it
And they
is.
won't love me any less.
Yeah, and the thing is if they're college bound, even though an SAT is not required anymore, there's scholarships attached to that. So if they're college bound, giving them those testing experiences and those um situations where it's not stressful, I think that also helps prepare those students who are going to be on that path eventually. It's not going to be
Indeed.
as stressful as those poor kids who are in public school who are always having these goals that are attached to a test.
Yes, because it's not just one test, like they test them throughout the school year to prepare them for that test. So it's
Yeah.
like it's continued tests. I can imagine a homeschooler in Washington being like, okay, like
Mhm.
oh, my mom said I gotta take this test. Like, no like no prerequisite to
Yeah.
anything. Just like, oh, we gotta go take this test today, and that be done. And then y'all go on about your way. And mom never mentions the test again because it doesn't really matter. It's just
Yeah.
you got to check the box. But yes,
Exactly.
testing is a thing. And I know a lot of parents step out because of that, the
Mhm.
testing. But as you said, under the private school model, which you all offer, testing would be done through you all, or
Yeah,
would it not have to be done?
yeah, and ironically, if you're enrolled in a private school in the state of Washington, you are not required to take state testing or any kind of testing.
Wow.
So, but our parents, we work with CLT, Christian Learning, Classical Learning Testing.
Mhm.
We work with them, and then ERB, that's a newer one. I can't remember who they stand for, but we do, more of the traditional type testing. And so when you enroll in Academy Northwest, it's not required, but we do offer testing services once a year for our students and stuff, for our parents to use if they choose to. And most things are digital now. We can do, especially students who may have special needs, especially or anxiety about timing. We do offer the paper test too, but most of our students, if they choose to do it, they're doing virtual in their home at their kitchen table. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good. Nice. So Academy Northwest offers for all ages?
Yes, we offer K through 12. To be
Okay.
honest, most of my learning centers are high school because, well, I can talk about the benefits of accreditation all day. At the end of the day, it's really parents come to us because they want the accredited transcript. When a student graduates from us, our transcript, or if they leave us in the middle of the year or, their high school career, their transcript transfers to a public school just as if they're going from a public school to a public school. That accreditation, that seal, does it. And then when it comes to applying for colleges and stuff, going into the military, any trade schools, our diploma and transcript is accepted just as it would be from any other public or private school. So we are, just to put it out there, Academy Northwest is a Christian private school, and we do not receive government funding. So our parents have, and you don't have to be a Christian to enroll with us. Our parents have freedom to use the curriculum that they want from the perspective that they want. We do have to make sure they meet state standards, the main objectives and goals. But we don't have to use Washington State approved curriculum. If there are things that go, ideas that go against a parent's belief, our curriculum doesn't have to include that type of the information and stuff. I mean, health and science are probably the biggest ones, where there would be controversy for our parents, but they still earn the same type of diploma as a public school student would. And the freedom, though, is 100% the parents are in the driver's seat.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to talk more about your model in
Mhm.
general, because it sounds so different
Yeah.
as far as traditional school settings. So tell us more about how this is structured, like your day to day, like how, okay, if
Yeah.
I enroll my child with you, to walk me through it.
Yeah, and so like I said, I have 20 teachers in the state of Washington. We have 17 different locations. We're as far north and south and west as you can be, and in between. And each learning center looks different. That's the other thing too. Each is it centers around the teacher, her community, what her skills and gifting are, and what she can offer. And I say she because all my teachers are she's. And what she right now, we have had male teachers in the past, but and so you can have a learning center that meets once a week, an hour per subject that the parent chooses them to go to. Twice a week, 3 times a week, all the way up to 4 times a week. And I have all those different models. The other option is the least, how you say, the least schooly option is a parent can hire one of my teachers to be a teacher consultant. And by state law, Academy Northwest teachers are only required to meet with their students once a week for an hour. And so in that situation, which right now that I'm principal, that's the only students I work with because it's the least amount of time for me. But basically, those parents are in charge of the teaching, the organizing, the planning, the grading, the grade book. And then I meet with the student once a week just to check on their progress, making sure, the kids and the parent are keeping up with the goals and they're meeting all of their hours. But the parent is like truly 100% in control. Where I have a 4-day extension program where it's like the exact opposite. The teacher is doing, and she has multiple teachers working with her. They are doing all the teaching and the planning and the grading. And then that one day a week that the kids go home, it's like one day of homeschooling, if that makes sense. So you have the least to the most that you can possibly have. And it just depends on what teacher is in your area. Most, all of my teachers are in person. We do have 2 teachers who offer virtual classes where they do meet with their students online. But yeah, and then we do in the state of Washington, in order to run an extension program, you do have to have one traditional 5-day school. So we do have one traditional 5-day school. It's reminiscent of a one-room schoolhouse. It is K through 12, and they
Okay.
actually have 2 separate rooms. The little ones are kept separate, but we do have that one traditional school that meets like any other school and everything. But again, no government funding, so our curriculum isn't necessarily going to be what you find in a public school. And while we do operate like a traditional school, parents are very much encouraged to be part of the process. I had a traditional private school teacher helping with a maternity leave with one of my teachers recently. And we conference with the parents every 4.5 weeks. And she's like, wow, you guys conference a lot. And I'm like, well, that's because it's a homeschool program. You can't homeschool unless you have parent input. So, and where
Mhm.
that's the requirement that Academy Northwest has put in place, many of our parents and teachers meet more frequently than even every 4.5 weeks. So,
Okay. All right. So I'm digging this model because it sounds like you all are the support that a lot of parents are looking for, especially when starting out,
Mhm,
not really knowing how to go about doing things or wanting to make sure there's, a community with them
mhm.
because y'all are offering a la carte. That's what I
Yep.
hear. So
Yes, we
you're
do.
choosing what it is that you actually provide from them, from your school. And then the parents are the ones leading it still, like even with the a la carte. So
Yes.
is there one parent teaching a class or is it the parent in general teaching whatever the a la carte is?
Well, so when it's an a la carte, it is actually a certified teacher or one
Okay.
of their teachers that they hire. Not all of our teachers have to be certified. We need one certified teacher for every 30 students enrolled in our learning center. And so sometimes we have teachers who have degrees but never were like education people, get the education degree that end up teaching in our learning centers. And so, depending on how that learning center is, when it's an a la carte class, that teacher will plan all the work that the kids will do at home for the week. I work also I also work at one of our bigger learning centers in Mount Vernon, Washington. It's Hill Creek Christian, and I'm the high school government and U.S. history teacher. And so what we do is I meet with my kids once a week for 2 hours, and we do activities and a little lecture. It's high school history, but then I assign them the homework for the whole week, and then they go home and do it with their parents. But then at that point, I am responsible for the grading and the grade book. But a parent may choose to enroll their kid in math and history, but they might be doing English and science at home. And so that's why the every 4.5 week conferences are important because that parent's reporting to us and showing what they're doing at home. And then at the end of the semester, whatever is being done at home and in the learning center, we bring that information together and we put it on the transcript. So a parent could like be truly teaching science at home, being monitored by one of the certified teachers. And as long as they're maintaining their grade book, showing us the work, that credit will go on the transcript, just as the one that the student was taking with me, the certified teacher.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I love this.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is really a homeschool model. And then you'll have several learning centers all over the state, which is
Yes.
really dope. Have
Yes.
you ever heard of, look, I bring them up all the time because this just blew my mind when I found out about them, but Brilliant Detroit. Have you heard of
No, I
them?
have not.
They do something similar where they have over 30 learning pubs that they basically converted abandoned houses into
Oh.
learning centers and they're parent led.
Mhm.
But they're expanding now to do the whole state of Michigan.
Oh,
And then I know
awesome.
they'll, eventually start heading outside of Michigan too. But I just thought that was so dope. And you're telling me y'all pretty much have like a similar model. But you are classified as a private school.
Yeah, we do have to get approved every year, which we just got our green light for next year. Um, we have freedom in everything but the health department, is what it comes down to.
Okay.
And that's a lot of, and I respect this, a lot of homeschoolers are anxious about immunization. And so, unfortunately, that is one state, that is the one thing that we must do that all private and public schools have to do. We have to require immunization records. But the state of Washington does have exemptions, which obviously
Okay.
we would accept. But a lot of parents, again, I respect this. A lot of parents don't even like getting the exemption because they don't necessarily trust, doctors sometimes. And so that is a hindrance. That is probably the biggest hindrance that we would find with families coming to us is that we do have to require that. That is the one thing
That's the
that
rule.
gets
Yeah.
us. Yeah. But we also, Washington State does have religious exemptions and stuff like that. So, and then the other thing is this Washington State does not require us to submit the immunizations to them. We just have to report like out of our 220 students, 176 of them have met the MMR requirements or whatever. We never have to attach names or anything to the government. And so while we maintain the record that we're required to do, we do not put it into the state database. We only do what we are required to do. We don't go above
Gotcha.
and beyond.
Gotcha. And I know you say y'all don't receive any government funding. Does the state of Washington have like ESAs or
No.
no?
And I
Okay.
don't, if they would probably be one of the last states to get it. Our
Really?
at least especially with our current superintendent of public instruction, 100% against that. Now there are some bills that have gone into our state legislature. I don't even think they're making them out of committee. We
Really?
barely the voters, we get to put initiatives and referendums on the ballot, so it might make its way that way. We barely have charter schools. Our state, before 2000, we did part, there was an initiative put on the ballot for charter schools. Even though we approved it, by the time the state still got, our legislature got to it, they limited it so much, it makes it difficult to even run charter schools in our state. Yeah. But I mean, that's why I'm always amazed at how free homeschooling is, truly. But it was also put on the books in the 80s, right? And so they've tried a couple times to change the compulsory age to 10, I think it is. I mean, to
Oh,
five,
right. Oh,
but
okay.
to five. But every year we sigh in relief because we've been able to maintain the age of 8.
I was actually just talking to was it Amy? No, not Amy. Jen with
Oh,
Washington Homeschool Associate. That's why I said this week. I had learned about the eight, but
yes.
it blew like, it blew by me. But we talked about it this week because I just interviewed her this week for the podcast. And so we were talking about the legislation and how she said it keeps coming across, and it's just like
Mhm.
they keep on, like, no. So it's like, yeah, because the parents are still doing what they need to do. It's not that, kids are sitting around until they're 8 and not doing anything. Like she said, the parents are very active and
Yes.
everyone does what they need to do as far as making sure their children are prepared and ready for that school age.
Mhm.
But I think it's cool that 8 is that number. I don't see that being a bad thing. Especially because like I think it's so harsh to jumpstart a child. Like, like they've been free for the first 5 years of their life. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, go sit down. Like all day. Go sit down.
Especially boys, to make them
Yes.
sit. I mean, girls too, but especially boys. They are
Yes.
meant to be moving around and moving and grooving and everything. And to put them in those situations. And that's the other thing in the state of Washington. In the public schools, they've cut back on recess, even with the little
Really?
ones. Well, I mean, that's mostly who has recess, right? Um, and it's like, what are you doing? This is
Why?
the
Why would they do
exact
that?
opposite.
Yes.
Yeah. And so again, the freedom of homeschooling, you don't have
Right.
to make, I mean, it's still to do 5 to 10 minutes of a little bit of math or a little bit of reading here and there, but then they need to be out exploring the world and being able, girls and boys moving and
Yes.
around and everything. Yeah.
Yes, because I
Jen,
joke about my 11-year-old all the time not
oh
being able,
yeah.
she can't sit still to save her life. That's who keeps walking back and forth here. Like, so,
Yeah, I had the pleasure of finally meeting Jen in person at a homeschool fair in, I think it was April. But she is a wealth of information for traditional homeschooling. And there's even been a couple times where I've emailed her and I'm like, okay, this is my understanding, but can you clarify this? And she's just got it. She knows what's
Yes.
going on. And
Yeah.
even though I'm private school and she's homeschool, our ultimate goal is individualized education and parents in the driver's seat. Because another thing they're trying to do, this is where her and I would be together, we'd be fighting together, is the state's trying to change, they're trying to limit the type of testing that homeschoolers are required, that, because we're required once a year. They're trying to limit which testing services and everything.
Oh, Lordy.
So, again, as a private school person, I'm not going to worry about that for my parents, but at the same time, I will stand by her side and battle with that because I believe in parents being able to make the decision of what's best for their children. And so, yeah, so we're separate, but there are things that we will align. We have different angles because of how we fall under the law, but ultimately our goal is put parents in control of their child's education because as you know, a parent knows what's best for their child, not the government.
Yes, and it's so important for parent involvement in general. That's what bothered me the most being in public school, and maybe you can relate, is the lack of parent involvement.
Yes.
It was just like, why are our parents not more present? And it's not necessarily that I felt that they didn't want to be present. I think they just didn't think to be present because it's okay, your child's this age, you send them off to school and they go and do what they need to do. And the next year follows, you got the summer, next year follows, and you just leave them alone. But I don't think they're as aware as they need to be about first of all, the literacy rate and the national literacy crisis that we have as far as kids not reading on their grade level. And then just the time that's spent in general of a lot of downtime where your child's really not being pushed rigorously to reach their highest potential. And
Mhm.
so it's just like, we've gotten into a mode of, okay, they get to age 5, you send them to school and they're gonna handle it. Like, and when they come home, whatever, have free time because like we don't want to talk about school now. Like you've been there all day. Let's do something fun or, whatever the case may be. But I just want to remind parents that regardless of the school setting, your child needs you forefront and you need to be very, very proactive in your child's education because there's a lot of time spent that it's like, is this really what you want your child doing for 13 years? Like,
100%. When I can't remember the study, but I do remember because I read the studies that compare homeschool, private school, public school. But the students who did do well in a traditional public school were the ones where their parents were involved.
yes,
And so, and you're
yes.
right. And it's like, and some parents, they can't homeschool. They need the two incomes or for whatever reason. And so it's just, it's so heartbreaking sometimes when I have parents who've been homeschooling for years and then for whatever reason, mom has to go back to work. And it's just breaking their heart. And I just always encourage them, like, it's okay. God's going to take care of them. He's got this path. But I said at the same time, just stay active.
Yes.
You are your child's first defense. You need to defend them. You need to make sure that they're still getting the best education that they can possibly get in the public school. I said, you've got to fight for them, and so that's what I encourage them. And I encourage any family that's, like you said, that the parent's the number one. That's going to be how the child's success rate is going to be higher if they have their parents by their side. Yeah, especially through those
Indeed.
teenagers.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Girl, let me share. I know, like for the most part, I was ABC student, all through elementary, middle school. Huh. I got my first D's in ninth grade. I had three of them, all first quarter. My mom was up at that school so quick. Like, I'm like, what is going on? And like I was being a teenager. Essentially, like I was doing what I wanted to do. I was sleeping. Just I was late to one of them. Like every day, I ended up failing Earth Science because I was late every day. And after 15 minutes is an absence. But I that adjusted to that morning time, waking up at 7 o'clock or not being at school at what? No, that was way too early for my liking. And I just couldn't get right. But my mom was up there and got me right because I had never brought home D's before. And I was like, what, girl, you tripping? No, I'm gonna talk to these teachers and we're gonna we gonna get this together.
Exactly.
So my mom was present. So, like that's the point of that. Although I would have definitely rather been homeschooled. Oh my gosh, if I knew what I know now,
Yeah.
I would have rather been homeschooled. Like from like probably eighth grade on up. Like I would
Mhm.
have been opposite where, kids are looking to go to high school. I'm like, no, get me out of here. This is wild.
Yes.
I
And
don't like
we
it.
there's periodically we'll get families and the parents are like, well, I'm here because my daughter doesn't want to be in the public school anymore. So you're right. I
Mm.
mean, there's many kids who are in that situation. And
And but they're approaching their parents with it now. Like I
yes,
had a young lady at the Jackson expo, and she was probably like no more than like 10 or 11, but she was like, yeah, I asked to be homeschooled because the kids at my school are mean, and like she was just talking. I was like, oh yeah, you need to be homeschooled.
yeah,
like you need,
exactly.
like, and her mom was there trying to find information because I forgot what number she was, but she had, I think, like five other ones that all went to traditional school. And this was her first time, like, with the whole homeschool. And she was like, honey, I just don't know where to begin. So I'm like, and I was happy for her to be able to receive the information she received because her daughter was like, no, I want to be homeschooled. I don't want to do this. And that's
And I
that's something to listen to.
And I don't know. I mean, like I've been in it for almost like I think it's 17 years. I've been in the homeschooling world. But in that 17 years, it's just growing and growing. And you'll hear parents, and I've even had a couple said, I can't do this. And I'm like, yes, you can. I said, you don't have to do it alone. There
Indeed.
are people to help, and there's co-ops everywhere in Washington. And so, at least in Washington State, and I'm assuming the rest of the United States, there's so
Yes.
much support that, parents are going to feel kind of wobbly the first year or two, but they just need to, especially on social media, there's so many places to find resources. And so I just always encourage parents, it is scary. As a certified teacher who taught in the public schools, homeschooling my children was one of the hardest decisions I ever made because I was a middle school, high school teacher. Do I know how to teach elementary kids? Like, I had to teach them how to read. What? You know?
And what exactly? And that's what somebody told me too. Was like, oh, well, you're an English teacher. I said, yeah, I didn't teach no kids how to read though. Like, I have to teach anybody how to read, even the ones that came and couldn't read. I still didn't teach them how to read. Like, it's like I didn't ever do this, but yes, it's a
And I
challenge.
leaned on people in my community, and there's two women that I just always called my homeschool gurus that just God led them into my life at the right time, and they were there, and they were there for encouragement, for ideas, and so it's possible. So for any parents out
Indeed.
there, it's possible, and it's not going to be perfect, but that's how we learn our lessons, right? Is in
Yes.
the dirty and sometimes the failures and everything, but our kids will also see us work through those failures and make it right the next time. And those are lessons in themselves besides the traditional academics.
Indeed, indeed. And Jen, I feel like she did a great message as far as her saying nobody has this. Like everybody at one point is gonna question, am I doing what I should be doing? And I will tell you, like me, I have questioned. Like even
Yes.
with all that I know and me being forefront, it's just some of the conversations we have and things like this. And it's like, is this right? But it's like, even if it's for a little blink, it's still a question that's asked, like, am I doing right? But it's like, you are, girl. You
Yeah.
are.
Yeah, we as parents who are teachers, we get those test scores too. I mean, I don't know if that's the teacher in me, but there, were a couple years when my own children's test scores were, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I failing them? So even I had those doubts and everything, even though, a week later I'm consulting another parent and encouraging them, no, it takes
Right.
longer. They're homeschooling, and I had to remind myself of what I was telling other parents. But yeah, I mean, that is one of I mean, both of my kids have graduated, praise God. They made it.
Right.
But that was even as a teacher, but a person who homeschooled their mom, I was always like, am I doing what is best for my kids? Could they? I was constantly doubting myself. So, but
I know.
I have a Marine and I have one going to college in the fall. So I did something right. By the grace of God, I did
Indeed.
something right.
Indeed. And I do want parents to hear that because they do think because we are former teachers or, former whatever, as far as education goes, they think that, oh, you got it. Like, oh, you got it. Jen was a whole professor. She said her
Yeah,
in-laws was like, wait a minute, what are you doing?
yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
wait, what are you doing? And I said, I joke about my parents, like they side-eye me all the time too. Like, so you gonna keep doing this? Like, this is something you gonna keep doing? Like, I thought, would have wore up by now. My mom always calling me with job, like telling me about teaching jobs to go back into. Like, well, you know that you could. I'm like, I'm good though. Thank you. So
Your mom
it's
sounds like my husband, even though he supports it. He's like, okay, now that they're graduating, are you going? Because, the money.
yes, yes.
Like
And
he
that's
would
what it's
see,
about, the security of it
yeah, he would
all.
see the salaries, and I'm like, that's not why we do what we do. But he's like, are you going to go back to the public school now? And I'm like, they wouldn't take me. I'm like, I have this new freedom. I
Right.
know what a good education is, and that public school system. You may have great teachers, but that system is what's
Yes.
killing it.
Girl, yes, say it. That's the thing. That is the thing. And we talk all the time, especially the passionate teachers who went in there and was like, oh, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, oh, I'm gonna change this. And it's like, oh, I'm not. No, this system is ironclad. Like they're not doing anything. They're gonna put a bunch of stuff over here so you get distracted and forget why you even came here. And then he like, it's like you're gonna get on and you're gonna follow the program that we have in place because it's been in place for long, long time before you got here. You're not about to do it. Like it's way easier to make the changes outside than it is inside.
Exactly. Yeah, but that is the one thing I do want to just say. There are good teachers that are in the public
Always.
school system, but
Yes.
we need them because if we didn't have them, we'd be in big trouble. The ones who can do it, I commend
Yes.
them. But
Yes. Bigger trouble. Yes,
yeah,
definitely.
the
Yes. No,
system
I
they're working in is just it makes it the challenge.
indeed, indeed, I will never take away from teachers. I just say that they are too compliant for my liking. I feel like they're just too accepting of everything that's piled onto them because they're given way too much to do. But teachers are just so okay, like we're gonna go meet them in my friend classroom after this and talk about why this is wrong. But I'm not
Yes.
gonna voice it, in the faculty meeting. We just gonna say okay. It's like no, we need to say it here too, guys. Like I was one of those buckets. I did a lot of things. I said eventually I would have got fired if I hadn't resigned anyways,
Yeah.
because I just did too much. I know I did too much. But I also knew that wasn't the place for me to
Yeah.
mentally or spiritually. It was a lot on my
Yes.
mental to just be accepting of. So yes, the passionate teachers are there, and we are definitely very, very grateful for them. I know a lot that are still in the trenches, as I call them,
Yes.
still there fighting. So by all means, we're always gratitude to them. But I'm grateful for spaces such as yours that have been created to ensure, like, we turn it back around to where it begins, and it's with the parents in the house. That's what the the teaching starts. That's where it begins. I always have to remind parents, look how much you taught them already. You taught them how to tie a shoe, how to brush their teeth, how to, put their clothes on. Like these are all skills that they they need. And
You definitely
as
need it. Yeah.
what? Yes, potty training in itself, girl. You teach a child how to go to the bathroom. Like what? Kudos to you. You could teach them. You could teach them arithmetic. You could teach them like a little bit of reading and everything else. You could do that. You really can. It's just patience.
Yeah. And and teacher, I mean, parents, you have that anyway, you know. And I mean that I guess that would be the one thing I would usually it's moms, usually it's the moms at
Yeah,
home. Is just to remind the mom, especially if you're new to homeschooling, is make sure you get breaks because you are with your kids 24/7, which is that's the greatest blessing to me. I always wanted to be married and have kids. That was like my thing. Like I said, I didn't know what about homeschooling, but I mean, people would think I was crazy, but I was truly living my dream. But at the same time, a dream can be exhausting if you don't have a break from it.
indeed,
So moms
indeed.
and those dads who are there too, make sure you guys get away, get some adult time, get some non focusing on your kids time all the time because when it's mom and you're there the whole time with them, it gets a little overwhelming.
Indeed. And I'm glad you brought that up because, brings me to my last two questions for you. One is with all that you're doing and all that you have done and what you just said yourself, how do you self-care?
Yeah, well, I always start out with my women's Bible study at the beginning of the school year. By the end of the school year, there's some, but I really, and my husband, number one, my husband supports me. So he does get frustrated sometimes, but number one, he supports me and he would be there to make sure I was getting my, hour. I mean, in the beginning when they were younger, it was only like about 2 to 3 hours a week, right? The women's Bible study. But also a couple of the co-ops that I did become a part of, I became friends with some really great women and we would do stuff away from homeschooling and away from the children. There is one group, I never did it just because I was also still working as a teacher, right? Even though I was homeschooling, but there is one group of ladies that I always admired. They would go away, their husbands would make sure they knew they were taking care of the kids for a weekend. And they would go away and they would do crafting, all those things women like to do. And they would also kind of start planning their school year too. It was a combination, but they would go to the beach or just different places. So, I mean, that would be it. A husband and wife have to be on the same page. You guys got to have your breaks and then find those groups that will take you away from it and just you can still be human outside of
Yes.
being a mom. Yeah. And then the other thing is I just love to read. I'm a reader. And so during the school year, I never read during the school year because I would do that before anything else. But in the summer, I just get a stack of
I know,
books.
right? You said I would do that. That's me.
Yeah, 'cause, I do the academic stuff, but I would, if I started reading for pleasure, I wouldn't be doing anything else. So the books
Exactly.
would be, I have my stack of books, and then it's like summer vacation begins, and I'm just reading, and I'm staying up until 1 or 2 a.m. And I'm like, this is my freedom. But find what you love and make sure you're still doing what you love.
I love that. Yes, ma'am. I can definitely relate with you on that one. It's like, don't buy that book because you already know how you're gonna do. It's like I
Yeah.
don't even like going in book sections, bookstores. Like it's like, oh my gosh, look, kryptonite. So, you want
Yes.
to get me?
That and homeschool fairs. Oh my gosh. I want to buy everything. I don't even teach my kids anymore, and I want to buy everything.
Right, I know. Paper Pie has such cool stuff. Like oh my gosh, I don't like that. I don't. And then the girls always find something. It's like, oh my gosh, like. But yes, I love that. And I'm glad that you segued into that as far as the self-care goes, because that's the parents have to hear that, and it's sometimes the resource providers or the creators have to hear it too, because some like I ask the question, they're like, oh, I need to do better at it.
Well,
Like,
I definitely didn't do it well, but yes.
yes, yes, of course. And last but not least, three things you want to leave families with. If they don't hear anything else, like, hey, take this with you.
Well, my number one thing would be again, parents, you are the best educator for your child. 100%. It doesn't matter if you didn't earn a high school diploma, you have a high school diploma, bachelor's, all the way up to doctorates. That's not what matters. It's that you know your kid better than anyone else. And the thing is there might be a time where you have to get help to help your child, but you are the one that's going to know what's best for them. So number one, don't doubt yourself as a parent. Um, I don't know. And then number two, enjoy the ride because they grow up so fast and they're gone.
Yes. Yes.
And then just again, I'm the principal of Academy Northwest. I guess I got to do a pitch for that.
Of course.
We are a private school, which not scares, it kind of turns some homeschoolers off. But what I tell people is, yes, we're a private school. Yes, we're accredited. But it goes beyond that. Get to know each school because we are unique in the sense that we do put the parents in the driver's seat. The heart of our school is homeschooling. And we are accredited by Cognia and ACSI because we do recognize that not all public school universities accept a Christian accreditation. So we do maintain the Cognia accreditation as well, again, so that our diploma and transcripts are accepted everywhere. And so, but yeah, so if you are looking for something where you're in control, but you still have what I tell parents, open doors. The transcript is an open door. There's not going to be extra hurdles when you have that open door. Then Academy Northwest might be something to look into. The other thing is we are always looking for certified teachers.
Nice.
And churches to partner with us. A couple of our learning centers are church ministries or partnerships. So we are always looking for people to work with us. So
Awesome. Yes. I'm glad you put that in there too about the
yeah.
certified teachers because, a lot of teachers are leaving the classroom.
Mhm.
And they're looking for their niche in another area. It's like, oh, we know you're still passionate about teaching, like by all means. So continue that love for it, and find something else that still serves that purpose. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you welcomed them. But thank you all, thank you for all that you all provide. I think it's pretty cool. Because this is support that parents are looking for. Like I started with, this isn't something that's meant to be done alone. So you have
Mhm.
to find your community. You have to find the resources. You have to, find that support you need. And just know that it's there. I don't think that this is something you have to figure out by all means. It is there. And if you have not found what you're looking for, create it. Create it.
Exactly, right?
Yep, because somebody's looking for it also. So know that. But thank you. And always remember, homeschool your kids.
Yes. And I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yes, ma'am.